So how's it going, ladies and germs? I completely forgot about this video series, and I'm jumping back into it because I've been really feeling playing some more Girls Frontline lately. Been really feeling it. I kind of fell out of the, I kind of fell out of the loop of playing it for a little while, and, well, here we are many months later. So let's just jump back into this one. The first thing that I wound up doing for this recording session, though, however, is immediately trying to get all of my 60 clears that I needed. I think that was the one roadblock that I stopped playing for this guide for, was getting my 60 clears for fairies. But before we jump into fairies, I also promised you guys a 1-4N overview of actual testing, and we're going to jump into that one right now. So first things first, I was trying to make sure that I did a test doing, like, meta dolls and not so meta dolls for getting things done, and basically just, like, high stats versus low stats stuff. I wanted to see what the minimum that you needed in order to clear this shit was, and if you just big brain it by using the right T-dolls for it. And you guys will see the two teams that I wound up clearing the spider with very, very, very consistent efficiency with it. It was a very easy clear, no real hiccups or anything that I could see with this. But I started off with a really basic AR team and a really basic rifle team during this. I wanted to make sure that I didn't pick anything more than 3-star units as well as 3-star equipment. I really under-equipped everybody for the first run that I did. And the first thing I figured out was that the AR team was far from efficient at being able to overcome armor. So I wound up moving up to using higher level, or higher rarity T-dolls. My apologies for that one. And even SOP2 and AR-15 were suffering and having issues with this. FNC by far is the highest damaging T-doll that I have in my arsenal right now. So the only way that they really would be able to overcome this damage that they need to get past armor enough to just rip through armored enemies in this map is if they had, like, a sufficient amount of damage buff from other T-dolls, like an M4A1, or just more DPS dolls in the back line. 2 ARs is just not efficient at level 74X to eat through armor on this level. It's just not sufficient. I tried everything that I could. I even put in higher HV ammos for it. It wasn't showing me good results for being able to do so. So I needed to change up my entire back row to incorporate a rifle to be able to have any rifle team have any success at doing this in any way, shape, or form. Your rifle teams are simply not going to succeed on this level. They simply have too much armor to do much at level 74X. So that's the first thing that I wanted to just get out of the way with you guys right there. As is, without other buffs, like without fairies, because we'll get into that one later, without any other buffs that are too sufficient for it, you will not get the damage that you need to crack armor with AR dolls alone. You need to incorporate a rifle somewhere into your echelons. Whether or not you can do this with one rifle and one AR, I did not test this. I wouldn't, but you probably could do this. You really only need one SMG T-doll that is tanking to be able to take the damage. You will do enough damage to everything that you won't need a swap out, an off-tank, or anything of the such. One SMG is more than enough. I never even needed to bring in more than a 2-star, or 3-star rather, exoskeleton with 11 or 10 extra evasion on my Mach 11 Ingram. And trust me, if you guys have a Mach 11 Ingram by this point in the game that is maxed out on her stats right here, that is plenty of a frontline tank. That or Sten, she will do just fine in this. Sten actually took way less damage than Ingram ever did with everything that I did in the testing. So I don't know who would be the better tank at this point in the game. I don't know if it's just because she was lucky, or if her team just way outperformed versus Mach 11's team, but either way, both of these T-dolls are more than sufficient tanks for what you will need with this map. So, just wanted to drop that one in there. So the next note that I wanted to go ahead and make here, ladies and gentlemen, is that not only did both of the teams that I had tested out, the rifle team in the AR, or the rifle team and the AR team, rather, and the AR team, of course, had a rifle in it, which I chose the M14, and for a specific purpose, as well as why I picked the M14, but moving on. Both of these teams did succeed, sure, however, the rifle team did much more efficiently than the AR team ever did. At this point in the game, at least if you're just running whatever that you have, if you happen to have like a really overpowered fucking AR team, I can see this maybe working, especially if you had a third AR. I did not test a third AR. I didn't see that it was really worth doing, to be perfectly honest with you guys. I didn't think that it was going to be nearly as efficient as just putting a fucking rifle into the team. It makes so much more sense than 3 ARs. You might as well just put in a rifle if you have to put in a third DPS doll. But either way, the rifle teams did significantly better. Now, note again, too, the team that I did with the rifle team had C96, who launches a flare up into the air and makes everybody have night vision. They are essentially running a PEQ during the time that she has that ability up. So bear that one in mind. My rifles were not missing nearly as much as they could have missed against the spider. The other issue with running just rifles and not ARs is that remember that they prioritize the back line. So they will always just hard lock at the spider because it sits back, and then they will keep picking off everything in the front row. So this is where you can either be proactive with your SMG and block a rifle that starts taking enough damage where they might lose a dummy at some point, or you can just let them take the damage. Either way, it doesn't really matter that much. They should be able to take down the spider, but still, that is really the only worry that you will have with your rifle team if you run them, especially with C96, because just that extra night vision when she has that skill up is just an absolute boon for you. But that's the only real risk that you have running this setup, is that the enemies in the front line are going to chip away at your back line because of the way that they are positioned. So you should be able to take out the cannons with decent efficiency, but just the foot soldiers are going to keep picking away at people, and eventually your backline's going to take damage. So that's really the only thing that I can say there. Now, the upside of the AR team with the rifle is that they were able to take out the front line, and then the spider went down last. So it really just depends on how you want to run that one. If you want to keep most of your damage on the SMG, I would suggest this team setup right here. Also, your handguns that are in the front line, and PKP is another really good suggestion for this as well if you don't have a C96, especially for this setup. Either way, though, it doesn't really matter that much when you have an AR team. However, because they will do damage to the spider is why I mentioned that. However, the PKP, or whatever, the PPK is what it's called. The PKP is fucking MG. That is a Pechenez. It fires really big bullets. But anyway, PPK has a debuff skill on her, but rather than worrying about the skills so much, her tiles are actually really good for buffing units that are behind her. That's why I suggested having, or wanted to put her in the front line as I did. If you're doing what I do and you don't really have like a 4x level 70 handgun that's in the front because you're doing the smart thing and focusing on your DPS and SMG dolls and having them upgraded, and you don't want to min-max your team to oblivion before running into 1-9, again, like a smart commander, and you just have them at 3x, just be careful of watching their health. You'll realize at 3x, though, they really shouldn't take enough damage where you will lose them. They may get critical and run out of the fight, but if you're just paying attention to your dolls, and specifically those handguns, because they are in the front line, and you just withdraw them when needed because they're going to be almost useless aside from their skills during this run, I guarantee you. They're not going to put out any efficient damage here. There's no fucking way. Unless you had like a really good T-doll for doing that. I don't know, you pulled a fucking, like, a Challenger, or whatever that T-doll is, the one that does, like, a fuckload of damage with it. Like, I can't remember what the damn T-doll is. She's a 5-star, though. She has, like, a big-ass hand cannon. Anyway, unless you have, like, a T-doll like that that has a really high DPS skill or something like that, that's could actually be sufficient in the front line. In which case, why are you having troubles with 1-4N if you do have her? But there's no reason to have them in the fight that I can foresee. So you can just pull that handgun out even immediately so that you don't have to worry about it, and then everybody will be focusing on your SMG. The rifles will be, of course, or the one rifle that you have, M14 for me in this case, will be focusing the back line, and then the ARs will be focusing the front line until it goes down, then focusing on the spider when it is the only thing left standing. So that's really all that I have for notes for you guys. Either of those team compositions will work out extremely well. I picked specifically C96 for that flare for the handgun in the rifle team, and I used 2-star rifles to prove to you that you don't need anything flashy at all to be able to do this. You just need the fucking AP ammo that they give you for 75 AP. I didn't even arm them with crazy equipment. There's no need. There's no need for it in this. And I'm pretty sure that my ARs had just +3 damage on their HV ammo. You just need, again, the 3-star ARs that they give you if you're going to make a team out of that. You just need OTS, you just need FNC. M14 is given to you, but M14 does so much damage, and again, if you use another rifle incorporated into your AR team other than M14, your results may vary, because M14 literally on crits, which is like 55% chance, I think, with the scope that she was running, she literally just one-taps these motherfuckers. She does so much damage, dude. So much damage, and that's because of her self-damage skill. M14 is an absolute unit for running in night battles, for being that one rifle that you need. The reason why it works particularly well, I mean, she can also over-damage units, which is why damage boosting rifles is not nearly as good as ROF, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. But this is the only note that I can really give you guys for 1-4, and hopefully that was super useful for you. Let's move on to fairies. So I'll be recording in real time with my voice now, so I will see you guys later. I need to stop punching my mic stand. And, yeah, let's move over to that. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is time we finally talk about fairies, because they are an important resource for really min-maxing your formations, let me tell you. They are a big, big deal. So, let's just drop right into that one, I suppose, starting with heavy production. I had never spoken about heavy production before, but, you know, now was as good a time as any. I might have talked about it very briefly, but, so heavy production is just like your regular production, as you guys are seeing me pull a Tokarev and all this other shit right here. The difference is, heavy production requires a fuckload more resources to be able to do so. It does so by the thousands. You can't even... Actually, you can. Alright, didn't know that. It requires thousands of resources to be able to do anything. I don't recommend using heavy production for anything other than shotguns, and I would do the lower cost rather than the higher cost. And the reason being is because you'll be able to do more pulls. Now, here's the thing when it comes to RNGesus with just about anything, guys. Higher chances doesn't necessarily usually mean as much as just throwing the dice more. You know what I mean? You just need to have more rolls at the dice and not necessarily higher chances. If you're going to use twice, and this is just a figure to throw at you, if you're going to use twice as many resources to throw the dice at trying to get something, honestly, you're better off just rolling the dice twice rather than having one chance at half the chances to do so, even if it doubles it, because if they both happen to be yes, and you get the thing that you're looking for, now you have it twice, versus only the possibility of getting it once. Now, I know that your chances are twice. Say it's like a 4% chance of getting the drop that you want versus an 8% chance. Even if it's low, it doesn't matter. You should almost always, in those circumstances, unless it is an absolute waste of time, you should just throw the dice twice. That's just how that works. That's just how that almost always works universally in any game with RNG. It's just how it always has worked. It just works better if you roll the dice more. And that is the same thing in this game when it comes to especially shotguns and the fucking resources that you use to get these motherfuckers. Holy God, the inhumanity. You are going to be throwing the dice a lot for a shotgun that actually works for you. That's the best way that I could explain it, because there are a lot of bad shotguns in this game, And by bad, I mean, like, they're just really not going to help you that much. They're cool, they're fun, but, like, they're really not going to be that useful until you get certain specific ones. So, that's all that I'm going to tell you on that one. But either way, anytime that you use heavy production, you are guaranteed at least a 3-star or above, though. You'll never pull a 2-star out of heavy production, which means you're almost guaranteed to get a 4-star out of them, which is pretty cool. I wouldn't do heavy production for a higher chance at getting a 5-star, like at all. Ever. That's just not fucking at all worth it. And then there's also this thing at the bottom where you can increase the number of cores and contracts that you use. I pretty much always use the low cost on it. I don't really ever go up to this. It's never yielded good results for me unless I just had extra resources to burn. You know what I'm saying? And plus, it uses more T-Doll cores, which are valuable as hell. This is better than gold. This is like spending diamonds to be able to get a fucking chance at, a better chance, rather, at getting, like, a 5-star. No, and then you might not even get the 5-star that you want. What if it's a duplicate? It's not worth it, in my opinion, to up this to using 20 fucking contracts and 5 T-Dolls, like, ever. And this is just for one roll. So, that's really the only thing that I can tell you guys when it comes to heavy production. Just be mindful of that, and if you fuck up and you wind up spending resources on doing things, it takes like 20 quick production contracts, or 10, for you to be able to quick pull up these things if you fuck up. And it takes a long time for them to go through as well. You'll know that you pulled a shotgun, because the production time of it will literally be... I'm going to actually pull one right now. Not pull, but I'm going to actually roll for one right now. Let's see if it actually happens. That is not a shotgun, because 350 is not a timer for a shotgun at all. Guarantee you right there. So that's probably not a shotgun. If you see 6 or 7 minutes, I think it needs to be towards the high end of 6 minutes, then you know you pulled a shotgun. That's really the best way that I can explain that. But that's the only real discernible difference between heavy production and normal production. You're guaranteed at least a 3-star or above. There are better chances, but it is way more expensive to be able to pull. So, what you want to do is heavy production in your equipment line to have a chance at pulling fairies. And of course, I have to do equipment enhancement really quickly, which you guys should have this unlocked now after the 1-4 crash course. So, there is that. I'm going to upgrade this thing, and we're just going to do some of these really quickly so I can get back to what I was trying to fucking explain before I was rudely interrupted. Yeah, heavy production, I gotcha. So, equipment production, heavy, here we go. What you would want to... Oh my fucking god, dude. Why? I thought I had enough. Alright, let's try this one again. I do one more for good measure, because I think I was only 2 above or whatever, but I don't care. Okay. One more time. Fucking Christ, game. Rude. Absolutely rude. Fairy, always do the lower cost. General purpose can help, but that's only if you want very specific fairies out of that line that are not available in the lower cost line. That is the best way that I can really... That's the best point I can give you. Fairies that you would want out of here that are particularly really good and just something to keep an eye on. So let's just go through this really quickly. As a note, if you guys want to know more specific details about fairies that are accurate, I have a resource that you can access that is in the description below. Otherwise, on screen, if we have any people that are accessing this from, say, like PS4s and stuff that can't view my description, then the link is on screen or in the description below to have a certain, just to have an actual look at what each fairy does, and from somebody else's perspective that has more experience with fairies than I do. Because I did say some misinformation in here. I caught most of it with edits. However, I just want you guys to take a look at that if you're going to take specific looks at certain fairies to see if they're worth your time. Definitely take a look at that resource when you can. You're given a command fairy at the beginning of the game. Once you unlock fairies and you go for it and try to do your first roll on fairies or whatever the case is, unless it gives you a tutorial for it that I missed somehow, you are always given a command fairy who boosts your EXP. Use this on your 4-3E runs. it'll do you wonders. So, command fairies are great. They're even just good for general purpose because fairies just buff the stats of the team that they are allocated to. Command fairy gives you a lot of good buffs. So, bear that in mind. Command fairy is just good all around, even if you don't need the skill. Rescue Fairy, used in assembling everyone for an outing for a meal. I don't know what this does. I think Rescue Fairy means that you get extra pulls, so if you're looking for a T-Doll drop somewhere, I think that's what the Rescue Fairy is for. I can see the utility in this T-Doll, yes. In this fairy, I don't have her, though, so I can't say anything about her. Illumination, Night Battles, very good. That'll basically be your swap out for having C96 altogether. She does the same exact thing that C96 does. Worth it. Absolutely worth it. Warrior Fairy. That's a solid thing to have if you don't really know what else and you just want to make a general purpose combat echelon. I wouldn't roll for a Warrior Fairy particularly. I don't know of anything specific that she does. Same as the Fury. To be honest with you, it's great for the crit, don't get me wrong, that is great, but I wouldn't roll specifically for a Fury Fairy or a Warrior Fairy in any way, shape, or form. Armor Fairy, definitely good for any shotgun echelons if you want to be able to make sure that your shotgun MG echelons survive longer. Very good. You can also use the Shield Fairy as well, which will do the same exact thing, and she also is, I believe, it's either the Shield or the Barrier Fairy. I cannot remember which one is which. I want to say the Shield Fairy is good for evasion and for SMG dolls, and the Barrier Fairy is the other way around. I can't remember one or the other, but also one of them gives you a wall that defends from damage, an X amount of damage for the front line. So, very good fairy. Both of these, very good fairies, and Armor Fairy is just kind of a must-have if you want to buff the armor of your shotguns and increase their survivability that much more. Taunt Fairy actually breaks the game, and that is one that is definitely worth rolling for right here. Taunt Fairy is absolutely, she turns into a target for the enemy and has X amount of health. Once that health is dropped, then they start focusing on your actual T-Dolls again. The Taunt Fairy literally breaks the game and is almost a necessity for turning certain battles into easy mode for you. Get a Taunt Fairy as soon as humanly possible. Twin Fairies. I don't really use them too much, but they're cool. They have like two different things that they do, depending. I don't remember too much with the Twin Fairies. It's really just cool. I wouldn't roll for her specifically. Sniper Fairy is cool. Sniper Fairy does just direct damage, same as the Artillery Fairy, if memory serves me correctly. Sniper Fairy basically does a bamboo sniper thing, where after like a couple of seconds or so, does like X amount of damage to them. So Sniper Fairy's cool if you have a high-value target that you just want to pick off with her. It just seems too big brain for me. Airstrikes, I think, does damage outside of combat. So it's like it just hits a certain zone with damage, or you send it in before you run into the fight, and then they'll just start nuking them. I can't remember. It's just support damage. Defense Fairy, really simple, straightforward fairy that does exactly what it sounds like, if memory serves me correctly. I think it's just all-around defense, too. That could be either armor or evasion. I'm not 100% sure. I don't own a defense fairy. Reinforcement Fairy. Calls for reinforcement T-Dolls. Probably so that you can summon another echelon somewhere. I do not know. Don't own a reinforcement fairy. Parachute Fairies. I still don't have one of these. Roll for a Parachute Fairy as soon as humanly possible. You pretty much need some of these to really make some of your grinding spots for certain stages, for events and stuff. This will trivialize it, because Parachute Fairies just kind of allow you to move to any heliport on the map instantaneously by using her skill. I think that's what it does. It's something of that effect. Again, it just trivializes your grind routes for doing certain things. It's very good. So, Parachute Fairy, definitely a must-have. Landmines, not really a must-have. Rocket Fairy, not really a must-have. Construction Fairy, I think, is pretty cool for defensive stuff, so Construction Fairies are good if you want to min-max your team for supply run missions where you have to hold an area, so that's always good. And I don't know what the Combo Fairy does. I don't own a Combo Fairy, so that's all that I can say on that matter. I don't know which one of these are available in the lower cost. Yeah, a lot of those are only in the higher cost that I was saying are pretty much must-haves, but you can get a Taunting Fairy, and you can get a shield and a barrier fairy here, so that's really good. The 500 cost is really good for those, but if you need a parachute fairy, you're going to need to go for the 2k costs here, which fucking blows. I'm also going to roll for 2 more fairies here because I want more fairies as soon as humanly possible. And these are not fairies because they are not hours long. So, there you go. That's how you can tell, is just by the timers. There is a site online where you can look up the timers and what they meant for what you pulled on your drops. I just suggest that you guys utilize that resource for sure. Now let's actually get into the enhancement of fairies because that's kind of important. So fairies can be both enhanced and calibrated. If we go into the calibration phase, because you've never actually seen calibration for equipment, because I do not have Midnight 4-2, but all the calibration does is use calibration tickets to change their little extra thingy here. This can change to a number of different things: damage, accuracy, crit, etc. These just have a chance of going off at the start of a fight. That's really all that it is. So like Keen right here, handgun evasion by 10% and crit rate by 30%. It just has a chance of going off at the start of the fight. I don't think that it has a timer either. I think it just happens and it goes on for the remainder of the fight. This is just a really good all-around thing to have. Damage is good. You kill things faster, then they can't really hurt you, right? So it's just good for min-maxing certain things. Obviously, armor is a necessity, or a thing that you might want to look into for your shotgun echelons when you start building those. It just depends on what is important to you, to be honest. It's just really more for a nice min-maxing thing when you're trying to settle a fairy in to a certain team build that you have. Just do that the way that you will. I've never seen these make or break a team, but just a good thing to have. There's also a damage 1 and a damage 2, so just be aware of that one. There's a damage 2 and a damage 1, so yeah. Fairy enhancement. You can sacrifice other fairies to enhance your fairies. If you increase their level, which is done by using combat reports or just from bringing them into fights, they gain XP just like your T-dolls, but at a much more reduced rate than your T-dolls. Very reduced. Like, it is abysmal how much XP that they get. It takes a long fucking time to level up these fairies. It is horrendous. I have seriously only seen about like a level 40 some odd fairy. As many hours as I've sunk into this game, the years I've sunk into this game, I only have like a level 47 command fairy. That is my highest level fairy. These things suck to level up. I don't think that it is worth dumping ridiculous amount of combat reports into them to level 100 them either, to be honest with you. So, I don't know, maybe they give you a ridiculous amount of bonus stats. I've never tried it, but they just take a long time to upgrade, and there are so many other things that you could be working on other than a level 100 fairy. I don't think particularly that it is worth dumping a ton of combat resources on, or combat reports. But however, these stars that you're seeing down at the bottom do matter. When you hit level 20, for example, I think they get hard capped at a level until you uncap their level by sacrificing duplicates of that fairy. Yes, we're bringing in the same mechanic that you see in so many other mobile games with things. You need duplicates of a fairy to get the most out of it. It sucks. It does, but that is just how it do. That is how it be. It might just literally be talent activation rate percentages. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't actually hard cap the level of the fairy, but this is just what I have noticed, and it takes a long fucking time, man. There are certain T-dolls, or fairies rather, that you have that you can sacrifice that are made specifically for XP for your fairies, and take note, they take 10x as much XP out of them when you use a duplicate. That's why you want the duplicates. And if you sacrifice a duplicate, I think it increases their star rank. I'm not 100% sure about that one. Either that or it's when you increase the amount from sacrificing those fairies into it. So it is a thing that you kind of need to do to get the most out of your fairies is by sacrificing duplicates. It's why when fairies are introduced in events, you can get 3 copies of them. So just be wary of that one. It's going to take you a long fucking time to get there, my friends. It just is. We're going to dive into the actual area of the dorms, that involves fairy enhancement as well, because there are a number of different things there to go over, and I'm going to start one option for the fairy chamber and get it going. I didn't do it. Oh, cool, they're already here. Perfect. I don't even need to do anything further. So, obviously, this increases the maximum level of every other facility that you have involving fairies. You're going to want that first, because it's the only thing you can do first. You have this for increasing the amount of experience that they get for conversion, so just, you know, if you want to level them up faster, obviously you need to get the weather system up. Warehouse Model Foundation increases storage limits for, what is it, fairy support commands. So whenever that you use a fairy's ability, it uses a certain amount of these support commands, and just the more that you have, the better. They also regenerate over time, and the railway increases how quickly they regenerate over time. What this means is you get 5 support commands every 6 hours. That is the loudest fucking crow I have ever heard in my life. Jesus Christ. You get 5 every 6 hours. It is always in 6-hour increments that you gain extra support commands, okay? This will increase it so that you get 6 instead of the 5. And that's really all that we have to go over with fairies. That's really it, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. That is everything. So you need to upgrade your facilities if you want to get the best out of them. I want to give my command fairy some love here and give her a few combat reports. Nothing crazy, but I'm going to give her 5 so that she hits level 10. And then you guys can see the amount of stats that she winds up giving the team and why she is a valuable asset to our formations. So, looking at our command fairy, she is giving almost 10% damage increase, almost 10% crit damage, 10% evasion, and a little bit of armor. Just a wee bit of armor. This doesn't matter if you don't have armor, but, you know, it's always nice. The gesture is nice, but the point of the matter is she's just really solid for damage-oriented echelons in general. Everybody can utilize crit damage, and evasion. It's not crit rate, but it doesn't matter because it is crit damage, so you need to obviously keep your crit rates up using PSO scopes and all that fun stuff, but she is just a solid stat boost to any echelon. And when you run your 4-3E runs, what you can do is you just go here, you go to combat. I'm going to withdraw this echelon immediately afterwards, though, so it doesn't really matter, but actually, I might not even need to do that. I don't think I need to do that at all because I'm pretty sure that they can handle this. So let's just drop in my AR team. Drop in... Oh, cool. The rifle actually is going to be significantly useful for picking off that fucking artillery bastard in the back. So, by default, the game already has the fairy auto on. You can click this off if you don't want them, and then only activate these command costs when you want them to. However, if you're going to run 4-3E runs for XP, just keep the auto on, it doesn't matter. Burn through your fairy commands. It really doesn't matter that much. By the time that you log in next, you'll have enough to help you out. In early game, you're not going to have fairies really make a big difference in your fights, so it doesn't really matter. I would suggest just burning through those with your command fairy whenever that you're doing your 4-3E runs. So, really that simple. I am using my fairy's ability right now. So they will gain extra experience from the fight here. I don't think that you are going to get hit. Nope. Well, that sucks. Oh, well. I'm going to have to run Ingram up to the front, it looks like, then. Or just let OTS take a shitload of damage. Either way. But this has been everything I wanted to go over in this episode of the Generalist's Guide to Girls Frontline, Ladies and Germs. I hope that this was sufficient information for you. And I will see you next time. You are dismissed, Commander. Take it easy.